So we're all here. Very warm welcome to Iceland for everyone. We just finished Prime Minister's meeting with the Secretary General of the Nordic Council. We also had a very good, fruitful and productive meeting yesterday at Þingvellir. So now I give the floor over to Prime Minister of Sweden, Ulf Kristersson, to start this session off. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bjarni. Good to be here, even today. And Nordic cooperation is more important than ever. And since March 7, we are not just neighbors and friends, we are also allies. By acting together, we have become stronger and more secure. A safer, greener and freer Nordic region has been the guiding principle for the current Swedish presidents of the Nordic Council of Ministers. And during this past year, we've worked together on many shared concerns, not least support for Ukraine, of course, which we spoke intensively together with President Zelensky yesterday. Our presidency has been driven by the vision that Nordic region should be and will be the world's most sustainable and world's most integrated region by 2030. At today's N8 meeting, we adopted the declaration reaffirming the importance of this goal, focusing on measures that will allow our citizens to communicate digitally with government agencies and businesses across national borders. We also discussed stronger cross-border law enforcement and migration policies, both for obvious reasons, where we see potential for more cooperation among the Nordic countries. I'm proud to conclude that the Swedish presidency has taken this Nordic Vision 2030 slightly closer to realization in many other ways as well. We have prioritized issues such as strengthening competitiveness for our region, including in the EU internal market, while pushing for the green and digital transition to accelerate. And to make our region safer, we have focused on deepening our cooperation to combat transnational organized crime, unfortunately a well-known Swedish problem, not least, and to address the challenges related to migration. Enhanced cooperation between law enforcement agencies at our border to both Norway and Finland are very important steps in this regard. We have also had a special focus on measures to improve cross-border mobility and integration. It really should be easy to live, to study, to work and to run companies throughout the whole Nordic region. The exchange of population data between our countries is one area where we have moved forward. Finally, we have intensified our efforts to combat obstacles to freedom of movement. A revised Öresund agreement between Denmark and Sweden has, for instance, paved the way for more integrated and modern labor market where mobility is key. Even closer Nordic cooperation is crucial for our country's shared prosperity and resilience today and for future generations. And together we can become even safer, even greener, and even freer. Thank you so much.
So let's give the word to Jonas from Norway.
Thank you, Bjarni, and thank you, Sweden, for an effective chairmanship of the Nordic Council of Ministers. I agree, the potential for Nordic cooperation is great. We heard today from the Secretary General of the Nordic Council of Ministers that there are ambitious plans for the remaining of this decade, and I think it just underlines that we as a region have a lot of exciting work ahead of us for our citizens. My reflection today will be the very serious discussion we had this morning on how to fight organized crime. And the Swedish Prime Minister has been open about this. Sweden has had challenges. We see that these are challenges that we now can see cross-border. We can detect in Norway in all police districts elements of these networks emanating from Sweden. And we have to fight that together, because as crime goes cross-border, we have to go cross-border in police, government, and all kind of legal activities to combat that. So for me, that has been a key issue today to underline, and I'm happy to see that we all stand together on developing our methods coping with the advances, especially in technology from the criminal networks, integrating in many parts of our society. These are very serious threats to the integrity and security for our citizens. We live in Europe with a security threat coming from the war in Ukraine, Russia's aggression, a lot of hybrid threats that we now cooperate to address. The fact that we are all 5 members of NATO, that the Nordics have long experience in resilience and working together between civil and military domain, that is important. But the fight against this criminal trend is absolutely key, especially to protect our young, very young people who are being recruited into criminal activities. That has to be met with a very firm hand. We've also discussed migration policies, agreeing that there are important links here. Europe needs to be united in the way we address migration, and Norway is fully supporting cooperation to protect our borders and to keep our country safe. At the same time, I just would like to underline that people living in our Nordic countries should all have equal rights to participate with integration in schools, activities, sports, culture, so that they are part of a community and not on the outside of a community. We just have to fight with tough means crime, but we also have to fight the causes of crime and close the doors of recruitment that can be, especially among the young. And here I believe we can have no better partners than our Nordic neighbors. Thank you, Bjarni.
Thank you. Over to Petteri, Prime Minister of Finland.
Thank you so much, Bjarni, and dear colleagues. I would also like to thank you, Ulf, for excellent moderation of our meeting and your chairmanship. Today, as you Ulf said, the Nordic cooperation is more important than ever. The challenges we are facing, Russia's war in Ukraine, Middle East, climate change, to name a few, mean that we need to work together more than ever. And I would like to also thank you, my colleagues, for your support in the question of our border security in our eastern border. We are similar and we are like-minded. Our aim is to make the Nordic region the most sustainable and integrated region in the world by 2030. Therefore, discussions like the one we had today are so important. We need to work together to make our region more competitive, safe and sustainable. We have made progress in many questions, but work remains to be done. Later today, we will, together with Katrin, present Finland's and Åland's program for our chairmanships in the Nordic Council of Ministers. I hope to continue the excellent Nordic cooperation with all of you. Our main issues are comprehensive security and resilience, children and youth and their well-being, and competitiveness. Together, we can make the slogan of our chairmanship's program, United and Strong, true. Thank you so much.
I give the floor to Mette, Prime Minister of Denmark.
Thank you, Bjarni. And first of all, it's a big pleasure to be here today among friends that share the same and common values and interests. And in a world with more and more division, it is, I think, extremely important that we show also the rest of the world that neighbors can work very closely together. We have shared the same values for decades. We will do the same in the future, and therefore I hope next time we stand here that Faroe Islands and Greenland will join us, and that we in all our work will be able to include the two other countries in our Nordic region. And one of the reasons for that is, of course, that the war in Ukraine affects all of us. It has changed the security situation globally in Europe, but also in the Arctic region. And one of our main discussions these days are, of course, security and defense. And all countries should be around the table when we have that discussion. I'm also very, very pleased that we have focused today on two major topics, thanks to you, Ulf, organized crime across borders and migration. Way too long, our immigration policies have been blind to the many negative consequences of migration. Today, finally, we are discussing these problems more openly. Things are moving in the right direction, but we still have to prove to our populations that we are able to solve the problems. Denmark and a majority of the Nordic countries and EU member states are ready to look into new, innovative solutions. We are willing to step up our efforts on the external borders, on returns of those who should not be in Europe. And of course, we will always support Finland and other European countries that are under hybrid attack from Russia. And when we are talking about migration, unfortunately, we are also talking about organized crime. It's getting worse. Criminals are now being hired in Sweden to enter Denmark, to commit serious crimes in Denmark, especially in Copenhagen. It is completely unacceptable. We are working closely with Sweden to avoid this situation, how to put it to an end. And I have said to the Danish police, and I have repeated it this morning, we are willing to give all the political help to the police in Denmark. All necessary tools and measures should be provided because, when you're committing organized crimes in our societies, it's not only a question about the specific situation. They are destroying our entire way of thinking as Nordic countries and Nordic societies. So we had a very fruitful discussion with Volodymyr Zelensky yesterday. I'm proud that the Nordic region is on the front line in supporting Ukraine. We are going to support that, but at the same time, we are now focusing our energy in helping our own populations, and the fight against organized crimes is, of course, on top of our agenda.
And I give the floor to Katrin Sjögren from the Ålands.
Thank you very much for interesting and very important meetings. And you can't underestimate the importance that we have to stick together in the Nordic countries. It's very important. And I'm very proud of the Nordic countries and the firm support for Ukraine. And as we all know, it is also our peace and freedom that are at stake. With its strategic location in the middle of the Baltic, just between Finland and Sweden, Åland finds itself in a complex situation regarding to organized crime and migration. So therefore, information, cooperation, and resource sharing can and needs to be developed further in the Nordic countries, Åland included. So we could, on a firm basis, improve both combating organized crimes and cross-border crimes. So it's crucial.
Thank you. So lastly, before we open up the floor for a few questions, let me say that we are very proud to be hosting this Nordic Råd session in 2024. We are a very proud member of the Nordic family and have taken our chairmanship year very seriously. It is a special thing for us to have the opportunity now to introduce the new facilities here at the Parliament for this year's session. Now, as has been mentioned, yesterday we had a very important meeting for the fourth time with 5 prime ministers of the Nordic countries with the Ukrainians, and I think I should use this opportunity to say how proud I am to be a member of the Nordic family, seeing what all of the Nordic countries are doing actively to support and protect the values that are being attacked in Ukraine. Today we had a good meeting which focused on our area, how we can make this an even more prosperous area to live in, and anything that helps us integrate more is on the agenda. And we are actively working towards programs that can make it easier to live in the Nordics, to move, to do business, to sustainably grow in a green manner. And for that, we believe we can grow our economies and see that people that live in the Nordics will prosper in the future. But at the same time, we also had to face some of the threats that are visible to all of the Nordic countries. And this has already been addressed here. International organized crime is something that all of the Nordic countries are experiencing, and that does not leave out Iceland. We have seen international crime on the rise in recent years. We've seen bad examples of how that can affect our society. And migration is also an issue which we are all dealing with, and I very much welcome the opportunity to sit down with the leaders of all of the Nordic countries and learn of their experiences, what tools and measures we can implement in our society here in Iceland that have been effective in their respective countries. This is not only important for the Nordic cooperation, this goes to the core of what it is to be a Nordic country. We are the region in the world where prosperity and well-being is measured at the top. So there is a lot to be protected. We are the fully functioning democracies in the world. And if we don't act in time, we have a lot to lose. So a very good meeting. Thank you all for chairing an important meeting for us, and I think it was also for the Nordic family. So now I'll open the floor. I think we have organized the microphone here, so over to you.
And the first question goes to the Icelandic national broadcaster.
Thank you. Of course, you are all here, but I can't help noticing those who are not here, representatives of Greenland and the Faroe Islands. So my question is, and probably any of you can take this, but I'm going to ask Mette Frederiksen. We have known that these two autonomous countries have not been satisfied with the way they are able to be active in the Nordic cooperation. Do you think that this Nordic Council session will get them closer to being okay with the way they are able to participate in the Nordic cooperation, or at least minimize their dissatisfaction?
Well, as I said in the beginning, it is, of course, for us extremely important that the Faroe Islands and Greenland are being welcomed in the Nordic cooperation. They are a part of the Nordic region. I consider us as 8 equal partners and countries who have a long history together, and there are so many areas where we have to work very closely together. I have put forward a letter to my colleagues saying that we support the efforts from Faroe Islands and Greenland. We would like to see them represented in the Nordic cooperation as equal countries. And I think it is and not only a possibility, but it's also a necessity to change the Helsingfors Agreement to ensure that all 8 countries can be around the table.
Okay, then we move to Sweden. Sveriges Radio.
Yes, I wonder if you could elaborate a bit on how you're going to stop organized crime moving across the borders. And could you elaborate on what methods you would like to see, and does those methods include more harsh border checks between the countries?
So, Jonas.
Yeah, I think Border checks are important. There is now a new police station on the border between Norway and Sweden. And as we agreed, Prime Minister and I, it is symbolic value, but it cannot cover the whole border. But it is underlining that police has to work much closer together. And I'm happy to see that part of our police here now is working in Sweden with Swedish police. So our methods have to be standardized and streamlined. And that has to go from intelligence through police to the political level, or ministers of justice, ministers of interior, those who are affected. Because this is a new time of crime, which is not only happening in the streets dealing with drugs, but it's also integrating and penetrating administrations and civil society in new ways. So that has to happen between the Nordic countries. We are so familiar with each other, we know each other, we trust each other, we are open. And then it has to happen at the European level. And just let me underline that Norway, not being part of the EU, we fully support what we now do in the European context of more cooperation on justice issues and also on border issues. We strengthen customs clearance procedures. We invest in new scanners to scan what comes in through Norwegian harbors in terms of containers and so on. We have sharpened our legislation so that we can intervene and grab what organized crime is confiscating. We can confiscate back these tokens of criminality, which are symbols of success among criminals. We want to be able to withdraw them, be they cars, be they watches, be they buildings. And that too we have to cooperate on very effectively across border.
Ulf.
Well, just to echo, I try to echo. Is it on? No?
Yes.
Just to echo the Norwegian Prime Minister. I mean, there are, I think, the two necessary items here. One is that every country in itself needs to have the sufficient appropriate legislation itself to be able to literally hunt these criminals. And beside from that, we need to have a sufficient cooperation to be able to go cross-border while they are doing it. So I think there are two parts here. I really would like to underline that I have never seen such unity in these attempts as we see right now, for very obvious reasons. And I fully realize that these Swedish gang criminals, they are really making the case for this cooperation. As I told my colleagues here, our aim is to stop them, not to export them.
Over to Petri.
Thank you so much. This is gang criminal and border crossing criminal is serious problem, and we have done a lot together. We have changed information, changed experiences, and our authorities and security people are doing very close cooperation. Good example is our police cooperation in Tornio-Haaparanta region. We have to cooperate, but take also our own share. And I want to tell you that at the same time, we are balancing our public finances in Finland. We have seen this question such a huge problem that we put more money, more resources to the security people, we need to have more police, etc.
And Mette.
Just to add one thing, because I totally agree, we have to work extremely closely together, and we are working together very closely now when it comes to police, intelligence, looking at the same legislation and measures, cross-border and so on. But we cannot talk about organized crimes in the Nordic region without talking about immigration, because there has been a very high inflow people, especially from the Middle East and North Africa, and they are seen in the wrong statistics when we are talking about the crime scene in our countries. So the two discussions has to be interlinked. On the one hand, if people come and they behave and they have a job and they speak our language and they are Democrats, well, then we have room for some, but people entering our societies, committing extremely serious crimes, they should not be welcomed in the Nordic countries. So we need to have the full picture, and the combat and fighting organized crimes cannot be seen without being, unfortunately, quite tough on migration and immigration.
Okay, we have 2 more questions and very little time, so we have to keep it short. Norwegian national broadcaster.
Thank you very much. I have a very big question, actually, so I'm sorry about that. But 2030 is 5 years away, a little bit more than 5 years away, and the goal is to become the most integrated region in the world by that time. And it's good, I think, with police cooperation, with defense cooperation and stuff like that. But I would like to ask, have you, and maybe Petri Orpo could be the first to answer this since you are taking share now, how do you see the possibilities for a more integrated region on a personal level? I mean, traveling is one thing, but working in the different countries, making that easier, making it easier with personal numbers, for example, in the Nordic region, so it's easier to move between the countries. And also, when it comes to language, we are not very good at it right now, since we're talking English. Vi kunne dansk, vi kunne talet svenska, eller vi kunne snakket norsk, kanskje sammen. Why don't we do that? And so, please go ahead.
Tusen tack. Vi ska tala svenska eller engelska. Men the most important issue is that we cooperate in government level, parliamentary level, in whole of society level and personal level. And I think that we have good and long tradition on this. But today, when we understand how important Nordic cooperation is and how important we are to each others in personal level and in national level, that's why we have to cooperate in all the levels. And if we can cooperate, for example, in energy security, traveling, business, cultural level, it all helps and make it easier also to move from the other country to another. So there's no one single bullet how to boost our integration, but we have to do this all at the same time.
Mm-hmm. You want to add? Yes.
Yeah, just one word, because I think this is key. I mean, the Nordic region was the first mover to do really great things cross-border for citizens, much earlier than the European Union. This was in the mid-50s. We traveled without passport. We had social conventions to facilitate work. Now we have border controls. Let's admit, we have border controls between Nordic countries. So I think this is a reflection of what needs to be done in face of a new threat. But the ambition of the Nordics should be to continue to work to be that integrated modern region. I see this is also the Finnish project, and also this pamphlet which is being circulated by the Nordic Council Minister on the agenda. The Secretary General is standing there for the remaining 5 years. It's very ambitious. And I would like to highlight one area, which is how we meet artificial intelligence and how we respect small languages to operate inside this AI environment. At least, you know, what we try to do in Norway is to build platforms so that our own language can be reflected in this new technology. Here, I think also it's an area for modern cooperation between Nordics.
Any additions? Over to the next.
The last one goes to Morgunblaðið newspaper, Iceland.
Hello, maybe to Ulf of Sweden. Ulf, what is your experience in Sweden of asylum seekers, and what can others take from your experience, such as we here in Iceland?
Well, our experience is, to state the obvious, that a country has limited resources to integrate very many people at the same time, and we have experienced that in a way that nobody can have misunderstood. So we have made a huge change in migration policies since, and we are tightening the immigration to Sweden. We have been going from one of the major recipients of asylum seekers a few years ago now to the lowest levels since 1997. So I think it is possible. I think we need to be able to have two thoughts at hand at the same time. The one is that we have a common responsibility to help in a very complicated world, and therefore we have rules for that. Therefore we take applications and we make serious assessments. On the other hand, we have the full responsibility for what is happening in our own countries. we need to take that seriously as well. So I think what we experience right now is much lower influx, but on the other hand, very big proportion of those actually applying for asylum are being neglected. They will simply have a decision to leave the country, but still very many don't do that. So we have a common problem in Europe, I would say, with very many people staying illegally in Europe, and that is one of the reasons behind this new strategy also on a European level. So to echo myself, I would say you need to have a strict legislation yourself, and you need to cooperate very, very firmly between countries in the Nordic region and in Europe.
Any additions? Was that the last question? So we thank you for the opportunity to interact, and this concludes the media session today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.